Hi folks, welcome to Crisco's Corner, unfiltered commentary, and that's your truth, the real truth. Please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thank you for your support. Hi folks, welcome back. Today we're going to do something I haven't done in a while. It's one of my passions. It's one of the things I love most in the world, besides people I care for and love, and that's chess. And it's an amazing game. And this is an amazing game. It's between Aronian, one of the top players in the world, and Nakamura. I'm a Carl fan. Levin is originally from Armenia, has recently taken up residency in St. Louis, is now playing for the United States. And Nakamura needs no introduction in the United States, former U.S. champion, one of the top 10 players in the world. He hasn't played in a long time, at least competitive chess at this level. He's played online a ton. He's on Twitch a million times. But this level, this is the Grand Prix. The Grand Prix is a series of tournaments that determines who plays in the candidates final. The candidates final, for those who don't know, is basically like a setup for a set of playoffs to play in the World Championship. In other words, say it was American football, they would take the top 8 teams based on playoffs in your regular season, and they would play, and would be one winner, and that winner would play in the Super Bowl. In this case, it's the Chess World Championship. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole game, but this is amazing. Endgames are everything in chess. Anybody that's played for a long time knows, and that is the paradox of chess. Is the least amount of pieces there are on the board, the more precise you have to be. The room for error is smaller and smaller and smaller, less pieces on the board, which makes no sense logically, but it's true. That's why all of you new people out there that want to just start playing chess or just play casually and want to get a lot better, study endgames. Go backwards. You study your endgames, your middle games, and then your openings, especially for beginners. Go through all the endgame books you can, or go online. There's a ton of stuff for free on endgames. Anyway, enough of my yakking. This is a Gucko piano, and I'm just going to go through the first few moves here. This is what I'm really after. Is you can stop the video at any time if you want, and it's going to go through. It's like I said, a Gucko piano, because it'll just take too long to go through the whole game. It's pretty much even game. I got my computer on off screen. It's got a small advantage for white, which is 11 Aronian. And like I said, there's a Carl who plays aggressive. We'll get to about here. Okay, let's look at the computer off screen. It's basically even. This game is dead even. The time control is 15 minutes plus 10 seconds. This is part of a tie break. They tied in this section of the Grand Prix. And Carl hasn't really played in a long time, but he is a blitz specialist, especially bullet. He could be the best in the world. If not, he's least in the top 3. 11 takes. I should say Carl takes, 11 takes, pawn takes, bishop takes. You don't want your queen out there. Believe me, you don't want your queen out there getting harassed. Like I said, it's pretty even. Bishop takes, rook takes. You don't take with your pawn. You don't want to do that, because of the fact you take it with a pawn, you'll have double pawns here, and that's very weak. So you don't want to do that. So you either take with the queen or the rook. Levin decided the rook. Carl just continues on developing his pieces, getting him on proper squares, and as you see now, the two rooks are bearing right down like they're supposed to. And rooks love open files. That's where they're most powerful. Queen comes over. Queen comes over as well. Bishop F1. Now that's an interesting move. It's hard to see moves like that. Now I'm looking on the computer here, and it's got 4 selections for white. And almost all of them are still, the game is even. But bishop f1 is one of them. This is why these guys are world-class players. I probably would have put it here myself, or maybe even here. But then again, if I put it here, this rook is screwed over. He's got nowhere to go. So Levin was right. That's why he's a world-class player, and I'm not. Bishop b5, beautiful. It stops the advance of this pawn. And pawns and bishops are great partners to each other. Queen a5. He's looking for the trade of queens. He's hoping it's going to trade, because when he takes back, the pawns will be blocking each other off. Bishop takes. He decided to do that first. Okay. Queen takes, rook takes, king takes. Didn't take with the knight, of course, because the knight would be stuck in the corner. He just brings the rook over. Rook to b3, brings the other rook into play. They call that a rook lift when you bring a rook up and over. Jennifer Shahadi calls him a rover. A rook goes up and over. Rook to b5, blocking the advance of the pawn. Now what he's going to try to do is bring this other rook over. That way, he can push this pawn, and you can't take, because you'll have 2 rooks on this one. So you've got to deal with that, and that's part of the endgame play. Knight goes to e1. He's going to bring the knight around. Knight to e8. Now, there's 4 knights on the board and 4 rooks. This makes it incredibly complicated. Incredibly complicated. So, 11 goes knight d3. Interesting enough, I think I was looking at g3 here. I like that a lot, and I'll tell you why. It guards these 2 squares. Because you're going to get maybe later down the road this knight coming here. He pushes up, pawn takes. This pawn is hanging. Now this knight is hitting this. All kinds of nonsense, because knights are incredibly tricky. And he's got 2 of them, so is a Carl. That's why I kind of like g3, but knight d3, who might have second guess 11 Aronian. f5, like I said, Carl's an aggressive player, but that seems more than natural to do, because that's kind of what he's looking at here. Because this pawn now, once he takes, say knight goes here, this pawn is lost. And he's lost his entire pawn center. Now black's pawns have come straight down. And that's tough. Very tough. That's a lot of arrows, but that's what happens with knights. f3, just reinforcing the e-pawn. Pawn takes, knight f4. Here we go. Knight takes, e takes. King comes up to e2. Now, again, remember, those of you that are beginners, the points that are worth of the pieces are rook is worth 5. A knight and a bishop are roughly worth 3 each. They're almost identical. A pawn, of course, is worth 1. A queen is worth 8 to 9. So 2 rooks are be equivalent to a queen, but a little bit more. The point I'm trying to make is the value of the king now is much larger. The king, when the queens are on the board in a lot of pieces, you don't want to use your king to attack with, because he's going to get attacked. But now that you're in the end game, a king becomes a powerful attacking piece. He's worth 4 points. He's worth more than a bishop or a knight, I'm told, and just below the value of a rook. So if you're not using your king in these end games, you're down a whole piece. And so they bring the rooks. We're going to line them all up here. It's just typical. Now, if you see now, it's a little bit different. This knight is guarding the square. That way, if he goes here and he takes, this square is guarded twice. He doesn't have to worry about it. That's why he's there. Knight f6. King f3. Because that knight would be overloaded. He's guarding this square to avoid to stop this. And he's guarding this pawn. We can't do both. You bring the king up, g5, knight c4. And I'm looking on the computer, and it's basically dead even. Knight e8, h4. Bust up those pawns. You're seeing, well, Johnny's giving away a pawn for free. No, not really. Once you take, and the king comes here, the king can come over now and pick up these pawns. That's what I meant by it can be an attacking piece. Rook to c8, so he doesn't take, of course. Knight to knight 5. He wants to get the knight to this square. That's also a really good one as well. That's a good square. Knight f6. Pawn takes. Pawn takes. Knight c6. Now he's blocking off that rook. Rook e8. Now if you notice, this pawn here has been hitting twice. So we got to do. He's got to do something about that. Let me get rid of these arrows. What do you do? What do you do? Knight to d4. You say, well, Johnny's dropping a pawn. Well, his rook's being hit. So he goes g4 check. And he gives up the f4 pawn. Now comes the Carl, instead of getting the exchange right away, checks the white king, forcing the king to come up the board. You don't want him to come up that far, so he's forced to go here. Excuse me, f5. Rook takes. King takes. Rook takes. Black is up a pawn. But the fact of the matter is, look at white's rooks. They're being hemmed in by his own pawn. Yeah, they can scoot around this way and all that, and that's fine, but it's going to take several moves. Plus, he's got to guard that pawn. Now, black, on the other hand, doesn't have his pieces tied down. Rook to f1, he's got to get his rooks into play. And this is a move that's really, really great. As you can see, the king is having trouble. He can't move here, 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 or here. You want to cut off the squares of the king. So Carl goes rook to h5. So what do you do? What do you do? King to e6 probably is the best move. But 11 blunders. He goes rook to f5. Or excuse me, yeah, rook to f5. And it went from 0 to almost a 6-point advantage for white. Or excuse me, black. Instantly. And here's why. Rook to h6 check. Where can the king go? He can't go here, here, or here. He can't go here or here. He can't go here or here. Oh, you don't have to be a genius to figure it out. King e7. Now the other rook comes in and closes in on the white king now, who's trapped. King to d8. Now, who would have thought your king would be on the other end of the board? But here's the great move. Great move. There's a lot of good moves here, but this one is great. Rook to h8. Now, those of you that have played chess for a long time or watched a lot of games, when was the last time you saw a king on the other end of the board being surrounded by rooks? Now, here's the thing. Everybody thinks, well, John, he's dropping this pawn. Would check. But here's the catch. When the black king moves, it's checkmate. Rook has to go to a3. He goes to g7. Now, those of you that play know that when you move your king and it creates a check, it's very, very rare. Very rare. Let alone a mating net. Watch this. Well, put to you this way. Stop the video for those of you that are new. It is now checkmate in 2. Now, those of you looking are going, well, You can check him here. Well, no, because the king gets away. He comes up here and he gets away, and he can get away. So you don't want that. So how do you check the king? Stop the video for those of you that want to figure it out. Those of you that have, we'll continue on. King to G7 check. Discovery check with a rook. The king can't go here, 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 or here. He has to block with a rook. And then that's the last move. Rook takes mate. Absolutely great endgame by a Carl. For those of you that are new and you want to learn chess and get good at it, go over. There's a ton of really good chess books, and there's a ton of videos and puzzles online for free that show you how to play in endgames. Just on YouTube alone, even though I'm not a big fan of them anymore, there's a ton of chess videos on chess endgames. I strongly suggest that you study them over and over and over and over. Rook and pawn endings are incredibly difficult. As you saw, that one simple mistake, you lose the game. It's amazing. It's the beauty of chess. That's why I love chess so much. Aesthetically, it's beautiful. It's just the greatest game ever invented. So I hope you enjoyed that game, guys. I hope to get a few more up in the near future. It's tough to find the time, frankly, to be honest with you. But I'm going to do more and more as time goes on. I'm going to do my best. But I thought you guys would enjoy this game. And until next time, goodbye and good luck.